Okay, pickle people, today is the second part of my two-part series covering the $100 foam paddle disruptors coming from both Ronbus and Vatic. And if you haven't watched part 1 breaking down Ronbus's Quanta line, you definitely should, as it also provides a great overview of what's happening right now with pickleball innovation and foam paddles in particular. But today, we're focusing on the Quanta's competitor, the Vatic V-SOL, which comes in two flavors, the Power line and the Pro line. And we'll get into the nitty-gritty in a bit, but first, I'd love to know which of these three $100 foam paddles you think is king, the Quanta, the VSOL Pro, or the VSOL Power. I'm super curious what you all think, so please leave a comment and let me know. Also, make sure you stick around until the end of today's video because I've got a special giveaway from our friends over at Bodhi Pickleball that's going to be one you'll definitely want to enter. And if you want a head start, you can go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell. And now, let's get into it. Vatic's new lines of budget foam paddles come in two different versions, the Power and the Pro. And compared to the Quantas, I think these are probably a tad easier to recommend to folks that have been playing with a Gen 2 or a Gen 3 paddle that want to jump to a foam paddle without too much fuss. However, there are a couple of situations in which I think the Quantas are a better choice, especially for players that like highly customizable paddles or players that want a lightweight banger straight out of the box. So definitely check my Quanta review out as well if either of those sound like you. But overall, Vatic's foam paddles have higher swing weights and twist weights compared to Ronbus's, so they're potentially a tad more user-friendly, at least generally speaking. And of the two core designs Vatic went with, I personally prefer the VSOL Pro, so let's dig into it a bit. This one here is their elongated V7 shape with their standard length handle. However, the VSOL Pro does come in 5 shapes total, including another V7 with a longer handle. If you want a full breakdown of Vatic shapes and a guide on which one might be best for you and your playstyle, check out my overview of their Saga line. I go over the pros and cons of each of Vatic's shape in detail in that video. Also, I'm a huge fan of the Saga line, and to be honest, if you're just starting out in pickleball and are looking for your first real performance paddle, I highly recommend looking at that line over the foam paddles we're talking about today. They're going to be a lot easier to learn drops and resets compared to their more powerful foam counterparts. As for the VSOL Pro, once again, this one is Vatic's classic V7 shape, and it's got a lot of similarities to the Quanta R3.16 I've already reviewed. It's 60mm thick with a carbon fiber surface utilizing a Gen 4 build. However, the VSOL Pro's foam core is in a floating configuration with its EP center fully encircled by an EVA perimeter ring. This X-ray provided by Vatic should give you an idea of what's going on, and we'll talk about how this impacts performance in a bit. Also, the VSOL Pro appears to utilize honeycomb inside its handle. And while it does have similar dimensions to the Quanta R3.16, the VSOL Pro V7 is about half an ounce heavier with a slight bump up in swing weight. Additionally, the VSOL Pro has a substantial boost in twist weight with a 6.5 target compared to Quanta's 5.64. And after promo code MatthewK knocks off $10, the price is $99.99. However, for me out here in California, there's about $10 worth of taxes that get added to the cart, at least as of the recording this video, which isn't the case with Ronbus's $100 foam paddles. So Vatic's are actually closer to $110 after discount code. That being said, Ronbus's Quanta paddles do not include a paddle cover while Vatic's do, so that's definitely something to take into account. And then the VSOL paddles have the same USAP PB Core 43 certification as Ronbus's, so you're good to go with tournaments for the foreseeable future. They also have a full 1-year warranty, which is double Ronbus's, so that's also a potential value add as well. And before we talk about performance, I want to bring the other VSOL line into the conversation as well. This is the V7, once again with the standard handle, but the Power version. And it's got all the same dimensions and even static weight as its Pro sibling, but with a much heftier 117 target swing weight compared to the Pro's 113. And then its twist weight is a tad lower at 6.3 compared to the Pro's 6.5. And these differences have to do with the very different core design. Here's an X-ray provided by Vatic that will show you what's going on. The VSOL Pro is actually using an updated version of the discontinued V-Core paddle cores design. If you look at the X-ray, you'll see it's using a single piece of foam for the entire core. However, it appears the core material doesn't run through the handle, which makes sense because it doesn't have any crazy propulsive effect like I've seen with full foam paddles that have the core material run down and into the handle. And according to Vatic, it's a, quote, full EPP core with hexagonal indentations throughout the face, end quote. And then they also told me that they, quote, implemented a novel glue process and a different adhesive barrier, end quote, to deal with durability issues regarding high temperatures. And if you remember, the unreleased V-Core had some units go out to reviewers that had their face material disbond when exposed to high heat. So it looks like Vatic has corrected for this, but at the sacrifice of a very cool name, V-Core. I mean, that's such an awesome name. Additionally, Vatic claims the updated version boasts an expanded sweet spot that's more plush than the original. And this bigger sweet spot is something my podcast co-host has confirmed because he actually played quite a bit with the defunct V-Core. Lastly, the VSOL Pro has all the same pricing, warranties, accessories, and approvals as its VSOL Pro sibling. And once again, using promo code MatthewK will make sure you get the best price. As for how these two paddles play compared to one another and their Ronbus counterpart, let's get into it. Overall, the Vatic versions play closer to how you'd expect a foam paddle to play straight out of the box when compared to the Quanta. The Vatics are heavier with beefier swing weights, more in line with other Gen 4 paddles that have come to market. You can swing the Vatics hard and get a lot of juice from their foam cores right away. To me, the VSOL Pro is my favorite of the two Vatic lines. This one is closer design-wise to Honolulu's FC Plus paddles. However, I think the VSOL Pro's floating core design shortens the ball's dwell time a bit and makes the springing effect off the paddle head a bit easier to manage compared to Honolulu's FC Plus take. But if you want maximum dwell and spring off the paddle, you'll want to look at Honolulu's J2 FC Plus. That being said, I do think Honolulu's recent elongated J6 FC Plus is a tad less propulsive than its J2 FC Plus counterpart, so I thought I'd mention that as well since it's probably a better comparison being elongated like the V7. And for me, someone that's focused on control and the short game, I enjoyed how the VSOL Pro's touch was closer to what I'm used to coming from honeycomb paddles. While I did get good dwell, the more muted jump off the face didn't impact the timing of my short, soft hits in a dramatic way, which was super appreciated. However, the EVA ring does get activated a bit more with drives and serves, so I was able to get really nice dwell and a boost at the baseline. And that's really where I look for a paddle to help me in the power department. And compared to a naked Quanta that hasn't been customized, you'll see the ball live on the paddle head longer with the VSOL Pro. To me, the VSOL Pro's design with a full EVA ring pockets the ball a tad more compared to the Quanta, at least straight out of the box, which plays a bit more linearly, having the effect of its EVA dampened a bit with those elastomer inserts. As for the VSOL Power, I'd say this one plays more linearly than the VSOL Pro and feels like a traditional Gen 2 paddle that's on steroids. The play off the face is linearly, in my opinion, but fast. However, this thing does have some heft with that heavier 117 swing weight. So if you're a player used to weighting up your Gen 2 paddle, you might like this stock while still getting a lot of power. My podcast co-host, who's a more power-oriented player, definitely thinks the power version hits hard. For me, a relatively soft hitter, I appreciate getting a boost at the baseline, but the hand speed definitely takes a hit with that higher swing weight. That being said, there are a lot of other shapes that have more manageable swing weights. For example, the Power Bloom comes in with a 107 swing weight, while the Power Flash with standard handle is 110. So if you want a pingier foam paddle compared to the Pro, this would be the one to go for. However, you can get something similar in a lighter package with the Quanta, but you won't have as much heft to work with from the baseline. Of the two Vatic V-SOL lines, I think you choose the power paddles if you're used to heavier paddles and want to get in on the durability and power boost a foam design allows. And then if you prefer dwell, I think Vatic did a really nice job with the Pro line. You'll just need to know how to utilize that dwell to get even more power, which is why I guess it's called Pro. The The Pro is manual, while the Power is automatic. And before I share if I believe the VSOL have dethroned the Ronbus Quanta as the $100 foam king, I wanted to mention today's giveaway from Bodhi Pickleball. If you don't know Bodhi, they're an awesome pickleball accessories company, as well as a big champion of my podcast, Is This a Pickleball Podcast with Matthew K. Pickleball. They have pretty much everything you need to set a paddle up. Overgrips, tungsten tape, tungsten strips, edge tape, and then everything else for pickleball as well. Shirts, hats, arm sleeves, wristbands, an epic tournament bag, pretty much everything but the kitchen sink, which is fine since we gotta avoid stepping into the kitchen at all costs. And after promo code MatthewK knocks off 15%, all the products are priced super competitively. If you haven't tried out their gear, you definitely should, and I highly recommend their Pro Tack overgrips in particular. Those have really become my go-to as someone that hates their hands slipping and needs a little bit of tack to feel secure out here in sunny California. Anyway, I'm a huge fan of Bodhi, and I'm stoked that they're partnering with me for today's giveaway. If you'd like the chance at winning a mystery package of accessories, and I have no idea what Bodhi's sending, it could be a box of grips, some of their new clear edge tape, a training paddle, one of their tanks, who knows? All you need to do though is like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment which accessory you're hoping for down below, and then fill out the Google form in the description so I have a way to contact you if you win. And that's it. I'll run the raffle in about a month, so be on the lookout for an email. Good luck. And if you like giveaways, I'm also giving away a pair of Solace pickleball shoes in my recent review of 6Zero's Ruby Pro paddle. If you haven't checked that video out, you definitely should. First, that's a really fun paddle. Second, Solace's pickleball shoes have a super unique design that makes for some really solid pickleball shoes, so you'll definitely want to enter. As for how the Vatics stack up to the OG $100 foam king from Ronbus, I think there's room for all of them in this royal family. In fact, I'd like to see other companies come into this $100 foam paddle legacy if I'm being honest. That being said, I think the Quanta, the VSOL Pro, and the VSOL Power all have their own realms to preside over. To me, the Quanta is easy to recommend to folks hunting for a lightweight banger or folks that like to add lots of weight to their paddles to really fine-tune how it plays. Both VSOL lines are for folks that want something that's a bit more straightforward right out of the box. The VSOL Pro in particular is great for folks hunting for a foam paddle similar to many of the popular options that are a bit dwellier compared to Honeycomb, but at a dramatically lower price point. And then the VSOL Power is for folks that want to jump to foam on a budget and get a major power boost out of the box while still having a paddle that plays relatively linearly. All great choices, just for different styles of play. And while some of the pricier foam paddles might have more nuance in the touch and feel department, I'd say all of these budget foam paddles are high performers. And just like Ronbus, Vatic has a shape for every style of play. And if you need a breakdown of which shape would fit you best, make sure you check out that Saga video I mentioned before. And that's all I've got. If you found this video helpful, please consider using promo code MatthewK on your next pickleball paddle purchase to help support the channel. I've got a lot of the popular brands listed below, and my master list has even more. And I'll be sure to leave a link to Vatic's site at the very top. You can also support the channel by purchasing some of the other cool pickleball gear I've been testing out by using the links and codes in the video description below. I also have a link to my favorite pickleball gear you can get on Amazon down there as well, and that's got some really cool hidden gems you wouldn't expect. And then of course, hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel, and slamming that notification bell all go a long way to helping me out as well. Thank you so much for the support. But most importantly, I hope you get to pickle soon, and just don't forget, it's about having fun.